What's your 5 cent on the bus relocation from Bay Street?
I'm for it.
Doesn't really make any sense. Not at all.
I think it's terrible.
It is unprofessional because then we have to look at the elder people inside the country.
Some Bahamians, they don't think before they talk and before they get upset.
Outspoken Tall Pines MP Leslie Miller sides with BTC executives in their decision to lay off staff. DNA leader Granville McCartney calls on government to stop flip-flopping over BTC. The United States rates the crime threat in New Providence as critical. And Fort Charlotte MP Dr. Andre Rollins and Elizabeth MP Ryan Pinder face off in Parliament. We've got those stories and more coming up tonight. I'm Dana Smith, and NV12 starts right now. Talking news tonight, Bahamas Electricity Corporation Executive Chairman Leslie Miller has sided with BTC executives on the decision to lay off as many as 150 of its staff. Miller told NB12 today he feels sorry for those people, but the decision had to be made. Miller said it should have happened a long time ago, as a lot of employees in corporations like BTC and BEC are not as productive as they should be. Kyle Joaquin reports.
BEC Executive Chairman Leslie Miller says while he feels sorry for the many Bahamians that may lose their jobs, he must applaud BTC CEO Leon Williams and Cable and Wireless for doing what they must to ensure the company is ran as efficiently as possible. In addition, Miller said he's sick and tired of hearing from union leaders, as he said it appears as though they think they run the country.
The well has run dry. That's what it is. So wake up to the new reality. I wish him luck.
And that's how BEC Executive Chairman Leslie Miller says he feels about BTC's reported plans to cut up to 150 of its staff. The move comes as the company prepares for the liberalization of the telecommunications industry. We caught up with Miller today, who heads the country's state-owned power company, BEC, who said he truly feels bad for those people that will be given the package. But in the same breath, he also said as a businessman, he understands the company's need to cut down its staff complement.
I feel bad for them, but I can't tell you that I can cry over it. Because over the years, they have sucked that corporation dry, just like they sucking BEC dry, and we wouldn't do anything about it. I got no pity for them. I feel bad for the families, you know, but you can only take so much.
Some workers at BTC called in sick over these last 2 days, causing the company to close its flagship store in the mall at Marathon Thursday, and several other locations on New Providence and the Family Islands also closed. According to Miller, at corporations like BEC and BTC, whenever an assessment is done on productivity, most employees usually score less than 50%. He blames both the F&M and PLP governments for allowing what he called non-productive employees to remain on jobs for so long. He added that the situation only gets worse when union leaders get in the mix.
I'm sure that BTC is no better than BEC. They don't work. They don't produce to earn the money that we pay them. And how they've been getting this money? They put gun to the baby people's head. When you don't give them what they want, your light go off and they destroy your equipment. BTC, your damn phone go off and they disrupt your service. Well, you know, you can hijack a people for so long.
The Bahamas Communications and Public Officers Union has already stated that they won't just sit by and allow their members to be sent home. The union's president, Bernard Evans, said workers are distraught at the news. The BEC chairman has been at odds with unions for several months now, most recently the Bahamas Electrical Workers Union. He said it appears as though they don't know their role in the country.
I feel a little bad for the people who are laid off, but I think they're their own worst enemy. I said this all the time in Parliament. People like pigs. When you become a hog, you end up on the dining room table. I think at the present time, that is what's going on now. The company cannot afford to keep those people there, paying all of their benefits, retirement benefits, paying all of their medical. It doesn't happen in the real world anymore.
Miller says once union leaders lose the mentality that they have the government wrapped around their finger, then reasonable negotiations can be made.
You know, over the last, 20 to 30 years, the unions have hammered away at BEC and BTC. They're the same unions, the same mentality. We own it. It belongs to us. To the extent that the president in the newspapers last week said that they should be able to choose who's coming in here. Where the hell the union get its power from? I'm bringing in $200-300 million. You can tell me you can choose, or you should sit around the cabinet table and decide who is coming into my country? It's just asinine to me.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
A reported sick out at BTC continued for the second consecutive day, once again forcing the closure of several BTC locations across the country. In a statement released by the company today, it was revealed the BTC flagship store in the Southwest Plaza was closed. This as the flagship store at the mall at Marathon opened its doors today after being closed yesterday. Our news team caught several customers reading this note posted on the store's window that advised customers to visit other BTC neighborhood stores. Stores in several family islands also remain closed, including stores in Eleuthera, Cat Island, at Zuma, Treasure Key, and Green Turtle Key, Abaco. In Grand Bahama, BTC's Pioneers Way retail store was also closed again today, according to the statement. BCPOU leaders have said the sick-outs were not sanctioned by the union, but Union President Bernard Evans did say they supported whatever members do 100%. Meantime, BTC officials have yet to comment on the pending layoffs or sick-outs. Free National Movement Chairman Michael Pintard says the government has the power to intervene in the BTC layoff ordeal, just as it did with Atlantis. Labor Minister Shane Gibson recently stated in the House of Assembly Prime Minister Perry Christie had intervened and saved the jobs of hundreds when Atlantis was considering another round of layoffs last year. However, on Wednesday, Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis said with Cable and Wireless being a private company, the government will leave it to the company to decide what should be done with the workers. Today, Pintard said both Atlantis and Cable and Wireless are private companies. In addition, he said the government owns a major portion of BTC, so if the government wanted to intervene, he said it would have.
I simply do not believe that the focus of the Progressive Liberal Party at this juncture is protecting the interests of Bahamian workers. I think this government is spending a tremendous amount of time rewarding some that have supported them. They are quite busy amassing monies for their election run. And so there are certain employers and the private citizens who, in my estimation, they're giving a pass to at the expense of the Bahamian people in general and Bahamian workers in particular.
The Labor Minister recently said the heads of agreement signed by the last F&M government during the sale of 51% of BTC's shares made way for Cable and Wireless to carry out such layoffs. However, Pintard debunked that claim, saying Gibson should tell the whole story regarding that heads of agreement.
Mr. Gibson ought to be reminded, and the public should note, that the Progressive Liberal Party came to power and indicated that they would seek to reorder the nature of the agreement. Hence, they spent a disproportionate amount of time seeking to reclaim 2%. So clearly, no matter what is written in the heads of agreement or contract signed, the government reserves the right to decide to go in a different direction. And they did attempt to go in a different direction.
Also weighing in on the BTC issue, Democratic National Alliance leader Granville McCartney has accused the government of skirting around who has majority ownership of BTC. Jasmine Brown has that angle.
McCartney accused the government of flip-flopping when it comes to the ownership of BTC, insisting it only claims ownership when it suits their political purpose.
Right now, because the company is about to lay off people, it's not owned by the Bahamian people, or not owned by the government, I should say, with the majority ownership, but it's owned by a private company. A few months ago, they said it wasn't. So it's not flip-flopping. It is flip-flopping, but it's using it to their political advantage. I've heard some talk recently when the government says that it's a private company and it can do what it wants to do. Well, it's a private company for the government when they want it to be a private company, and it's majority owned by the Bahamians when it suits them.
McCartney was referring to comments made by Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis, who on Wednesday said BTC is a private company. Unions who represent BTC workers have called on the government to intervene. Davis indicated that he would discuss the matter with Prime Minister Perry Christie, but also added that he knew very little about those separation packages or what employees were being offered. In January last year, Prime Minister Perry Christie announced that his administration negotiated a deal with Cable and Wireless to give up 2% of its shares in BTC at no cost to the government or Bahamian people. Given the uncertainty on the issue, McCartney called on the government to be more forthcoming on the matter.
Really trying to throw the wool over the Bahamian people's eyes.
McCartney says he has always had his reservations about selling BTC, a point that was made clear during the vote in the House of Assembly in March 2011 on whether to sell majority shares of BTC to Cable and Wireless. All 22 F&M members in the HOA at the time voted to sell BTC, and all of the PLP members voted against the sale. McCartney, who had resigned from the F&M, voted no.
But there were others there who wanted to do the same thing, but decided to stay and agree with it for their own political gain, which ultimately was part of their demise. The bottom line is you always ought to do the right thing, even if you have to stand alone.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Brown.
The United States Department of State has once again rated the crime threat in New Providence as critical. In its Bahamas 2015 Crime and Safety Report, which was released yesterday, the State Department says while there has been a very slight reduction in some crime classifications reported in 2014 by the police force, violent crime remains above the 2013 level. The report says New Providence, in particular, has sustained remarkably high levels of violent armed crimes. The police force continued enforcing particularly dynamic policing methods, which included indiscriminate armed checkpoints and a crime reduction plan in tourist areas. The majority of violent crimes reported were perpetrated against local Bahamians, and these occurred in areas of inundated criminality, not typically frequented by tourists. Nevertheless, despite arduous government anti-crime incentives, during the past several months, New Providence has witnessed a significant increase of violent armed crimes in locations heavily patronized by U.S. citizens. In many instances, these incidents have resulted in fatalities. The report, which can be read online at the State Department's Bureau of Diplomatic Security website, says the Royal Bahamas Police Force last year reported several incidents that either involved tourists or occurred in well-known tourist locations. Specifically, the report says crimes were reported near popular tourist attractions close to the cruise ship port and the Cable Beach resort areas. The State Department notes, while there is no evidence that U.S. citizens have been targeted directly, criminals have progressively become more brazen and creative in their methods. For example, 3 armed robberies of U.S. citizens occurred in daylight hours in heavily frequented tourist areas, including an armed assailant assaulting and robbing a woman walking near Adastra Gardens. In mid-October, during daylight hours, in a heavily populated area, 2 men armed with handguns robbed customers waiting in a restaurant's drive-thru line. Armed assailants have placed items in the street as impromptu roadblocks so unassuming drivers would stop and could be robbed. A man was shot at Potter's Key near the base of the Paradise Island Bridge at a time when tourists would be frequenting the area. 3 embassy employees were injured in robberies, and a member of the U.S. military was injured during an altercation at a popular lounge restaurant heavily frequented by tourists. The report says armed robberies, property theft, purse snatching, and general theft of personal property remain the most common crimes perpetrated against tourists. It adds, the U.S. Embassy has received several reports of home invasion robberies at both residences and hotels in Nassau. Foreigners resident in the Bahamas have periodically been victimized by residential burglary. Crimes ranging from theft to home invasions occur even within gated communities. The State Department notes on Grand Bahama, a U.S. and a British citizen died as a result of injuries sustained during home invasions in 2 unrelated incidents. The report says the U.S. Embassy has also received an increase of reports of assaults, including sexual assaults at residences, hotel rooms, casinos, outside hotels, and on cruise ships. In some sexual assault incidents, the victim had reportedly been drugged. Last year, crime in New Providence was rated by the State Department as high. Back in 2012, it was rated critical. Well, police are on the hunt for 2 men wanted for questioning in a human trafficking investigation. 48-year-old Edward Adderley of Boatswain Hill and 41-year-old Carlos Wells of Columbus Cove, West Bay Street. Adderley is described as having a dark brown complexion, medium build, and standing at 5 feet 7 inches in height. Wells is described as having a brown complexion, medium build, and standing at 6 feet in height. Anyone with information on the whereabouts of either of these men, no matter how small or insignificant the tip may seem, to contact the CDU at 502-9991 or 502-9992, or contact police at 919 or 328-TIPS. You're watching the best in Bahamian news. There's more when NB12 returns.